We get a lot of questions about disability cases at our firm. The process is not always straightforward. And when there's a problem with your application, it can take months to find out if you've won the case or not. In this episode, we're going to be talking about Social Security disability. I'll cover the difference between SSI and SSDI, how to begin the application process, what the process normally looks like, and when should you get a lawyer involved with your case. Hi, I'm attorney Doug Mann, and I'm a managing partner with Dyer, Garofalo, Mann & Schultz. Our law firm practices personal injury cases, workers' compensation cases, and Social Security disability cases in Indiana, Kentucky, and Ohio. Social Security disability is one of the most common legal cases a person might find themselves dealing with in the United States. Although employers should not discriminate against workers with disabilities, it still can be very challenging to find a job after a substantial injury, especially in parts of the country with fewer sit-down jobs and little to no ramps leading into the job sites. There are two extremely important things you have to figure out before applying for disability benefits: if your disability will qualify, and whether you should take SSDI or SSI. Before we get into disability types, let's talk about the difference between SSI and SSDI. SSDI is the preferred option, but for those who can't meet its requirements, SSI becomes the next best option. SSDI requires you to work a certain number of years, depending on your age, before you can apply for benefits. For example, if you are 58 years old, you need to have worked 9 years, or if you're 34, you need to have worked 3 years. This, of course, has to be recent work history. Besides the work history requirements, there are some big differences. SSDI takes effect 5 months after you become disabled, but more than likely you will not see any payments till about 6 months to a year, and that's at least with one appeal. But you can get back payments for every month after that 5-month requirement. You may also be eligible for partial monthly benefits for your family members. You can make an additional income while still receiving SSDI, but you may end up paying taxes. If you individually make more than $25,000 a year, but less than $34,000, you could still be taxed on half of your benefits. If you make more than $34,000, you could be taxed on 85% of your benefits. To maintain your SSDI status, you will need to perform a continuing disability review every 1 to 3 years. With SSI, you don't have to have a work history, but your likelihood of getting on it is much lower than the SSDI cases. Your maximum federal amount is $771 a month when you're on SSI. However, if you make an income or if someone else is providing shelter or food for you, you may need to subtract that from your benefit amount. Also, you cannot have more than $2,000 in disposable assets. But before you start deciding what type of disability benefit is best for you, you have to determine if your disability makes you eligible. The first step that happens at the Social Security Administration office is they look to see if your disability matches what is in their blue book of criteria. Some are not in this blue book. So in the next step, they have to evaluate if your condition is functionally equivalent to another listing. Next, they evaluate your RFC, or residual functional capacity. That is a test your doctor performs before you apply. It shows how long you can stand, whether you can bend, and what level of work you can perform. From there, they determine if you can perform other types of work. If you're over 50 years old and you're not able to perform your past work, you might be considered disabled without that assessment. For those under 50, they may consider you able to perform other work, and you may fail at this step. In fact, most people are denied at this step, and that's why it's important to prove you're unable to perform any other type of work. So what is this blue book? Here's a rundown, but be sure to check out the ssa.gov site to make sure that you fit their detailed criteria. First, there are the orthopedic disorders. This is generally defined as a bone or joint deformity. This condition might hinder someone's ability to walk or perform the necessary motor functions for the job. Respiratory disorders could include coughing up blood or being required to carry oxygen. Cardiovascular disorders are ones that affect the heart and might make working dangerous. Digestive disorders include inflammatory bowel disorder and liver dysfunction. You could possibly have a disability from a kidney disorder. Hematological disorders affect your bone marrow and blood. And then there are skin disorders, This category is reserved for conditions such as severe burns or skin that's susceptible to chronic infection. The last 7 categories include disorders such as cancer, immune system disorders that may cause recurrent infection or severe fatigue. Senses and speech applies to those who are deaf, blind, or suffer from aphasia. Endocrine disorders are hormonal imbalances such as thyroid gland issues. Congenital disorders is often used as the category to evaluate those with non-mosaic Down syndrome. Neurological disorders such as epilepsy or coma, and immune system disorders such as HIV. These 13 categories cover a lot of disorders that may cause someone to be unable to work. However, the SSA has set their criteria for each disorder fairly high, and much of these criteria rely on a doctor putting you through several tests so you can qualify. If you work with your doctor and make clear documentation that hits each criteria, you should have a good chance of being accepted and get the benefits you deserve. But there is one final type of disability that can be extremely difficult to prove: mental disorders. The SSA breaks this category down into 11 subcategories: neurocognitive, psychotic, depressive, intellectual, anxiety, somatic, personality, autism, neurodevelopmental, eating disorders, and trauma-related disorders. You need evidence from medical sources, from people you know from school or work, longitudinal evidence, and evidence in unfamiliar and supportive environments. Then it's measured against the second form of criteria that measures how well you do in a variety of situations based on a 5-point scale. So you are unable to work and you know that you fall under one of those 14 categories. What do you do next? As an example, Sarah has been experiencing debilitating pain at work. Sarah takes some time off and visits her doctor. She is then diagnosed with a type of chronic kidney disease caused by her high blood pressure. It quickly becomes apparent that it is too late for a new diet plan and she needs dialysis. Between her pain and dialysis appointments, going to work becomes impossible, and she considers going on SSDI. So Sarah goes back to her doctor. And Sarah's doctor, we'll say Dr. Rob, walks her through what tests she needs to have so she can qualify for SSD. Dr. Rob tells Sarah that she will need documentation from her diagnosis showing the signs, symptoms, and laboratory findings. Dr. Rob says they'll need to collect laboratory reports for the next 90 days or over a 12-month period. Once Sarah's collected evidence of her disorder with her doctor, she's ready to file her claim with SSA. In 6 months to a year, she'll receive word if she's been approved for SSDI. This is how a case would work if everything goes perfectly. But as many people will tell you, SSDI, and especially SSI, is extremely challenging to get approved for. In cases where you're not sure if you have enough evidence to prove your case, or you've already been rejected, that's when you should consider getting a lawyer involved with your case. The number one reason that people get denied for SSDI? Evidence. So it's important that you have evidence of your condition from your doctor, proof that you cannot work, and most importantly, that you're meeting the SSA, the Blue Book criteria before you apply. And that's a rundown of what it's like to apply for Social Security disability. If you have any questions about disability benefits, just shoot us a question below on this video. Want to learn more about your rights and how legal cases work? Hit subscribe. Have a good day.